What if AI replaced every single job in the world? What would life look like? Most of us have watched The Terminator or Matrix, and we all know how those movies ended up. There's also been an increase in AI horror movies recently, and as someone who uses AI almost every day, I make sure to never watch any of them because I don't want to get psyched out. Before I started using AI, let me take you back in time. Around 2022, I was going through 3 months back-to-back of consecutive decrease in downloads for my podcast. And around this time, ChatGPT first came out. And so my intention was to use ChatGPT to help me grow. I wanted it to help me create episode titles and show notes. And around this time, shortly after, I ended up meeting my mentor. He had his free course on AI, and at the end of it, he revealed a screen recording of himself using AI to create the entire course. It sparked my curiosity a bit. It's like, wow, I didn't know ChatGPT can do that. So not too long after, I used ChatGPT to create a webinar on how to use ChatGPT. AI created the slides, the images. AI helped me create the Eventbrite page. It helped me create the description. It even helped me write out all the emails I used to get people to register and follow up. And after doing this project, it made me realize two things. First, a lot of people were unaware of AI entirely. Also, a lot of people were very unfamiliar with tech in general. And so as AI continued to evolve and more tools came onto the scene, a lot of media outlets started to cover AI. And this one in particular stood out to me. It reads, Goldman Sachs predicts 300 million jobs will be lost or degraded by artificial intelligence. I thought to myself, wow, that's a lot of jobs. And so from there, more headlines came out. And as if every time AI was on the news, it was something negative, right? People were wondering, is AI coming for your job? Is the AI apocalypse coming? Is AI going to end the world? Is it going to end up in doom? This, coupled with a lot of people's limiting belief of them not being tech savvy, really prevented a lot of people from using AI. And all of the training that was available was made by developers and programmers for other developers and programmers. So as someone who's an everyday person, it was very overwhelming to try and get into AI and start using it for themselves. So most people didn't. And so again, as AI continued to evolve, I started seeing more and more of these ads. And I started wondering, why are people selling prompts? What good are prompts anyways? And so in order to never be replaced by AI, you got to start understanding the fundamentals, the basics. So when you're at a restaurant, you sit down, the server comes up to you, and they take your order. Your order tells the chef what to make. Same thing when you use a lot of these AI tools, your prompt tells the AI what to generate. So in order to get effective results from these AI tools, you have to first learn how to write a prompt. But what most people do is just type in something like, hey, write me an email, or hey, come up with a marketing plan for me. And it's very generic. And the reason this doesn't work is because these AI tools are trained on a bunch of things, but they're not trained on us. And so us asking generic prompts is just gonna get generic responses. And most of us can all smell ChatGPT from a mile away. We all know when someone wrote an email with ChatGPT, we can see it. What I do instead is I learned the art of prompt engineering. And I follow this 4-step framework to get the best possible results from AI. That then brings the question, what's prompt engineering? I like to think of prompt engineering as the language of how you speak to these AI platforms. It's the art and the science behind writing a prompt. And the reason this works so much better is, let's say you booked a trip to Spain, but you didn't speak Spanish, you didn't have a tour guide, and you didn't have a translator. You'd be miserable. You couldn't get anywhere, you wouldn't know what to do, and the whole trip would be awful. But let's say you were fluent in Spanish, like myself. You would go and you would have a blast on this trip because you'd be able to effectively communicate what you wanted and then be able to get what you want. And it's the same way with these AI platforms. And so the first step whenever using one of these AI tools is to give it a role. I remember when I was first using ChatGPT, this works for a lot of the large language models. I was using it, and one day I decided to say, hey, imagine you're a social media marketer. And then from there, every time it wrote something, it acted as if it was a social media marketer. And I was like, okay, got me a little bit better results. One day I tried to take it a little step further. I was like, imagine you're Dan Kennedy. And for anyone who doesn't know him, he's a director of marketing guy. And instantly, ChatGPT started to embed all of his marketing philosophies into all of its responses. And so just like that, instead of having to hire the guy to work with me one-on-one, I used ChatGPT for free. And now it started using all of his marketing tactics that he teaches. After you give it a role, you want to give it an action. What exactly do you want it to do here? So if the role is, imagine you're a social media marketer, right? The action could be, write me a video script. Pretty simple and straightforward. From there, you want to give it some context. So earlier I mentioned about how these AI platforms are trained on a bunch of things, right? They're not trained on us. So the more we can tell it about ourselves and the task at hand, let's say you want to write an email for your boss, let's say you wanted to plan an event, whatever it may be, context would be, all right, let's say I wanted to write an email specifically for getting a raise. And here are some of the things that I've accomplished in my company. Here's why I deserve it. Telling it more about yourself will help these AI platforms provide more personalized responses. And the final thing, set some expectations. See, if anyone here has gotten into an argument via text, we all know how quickly things can get lost in translation. So just because these AI tools are super smart, doesn't mean they understand you perfectly. So one of the key tricks I always use is whenever I'm writing any sort of prompt, I say, do you understand? If so, please provide an example. And that way I get on the same page as the AI. And when you get really good at this art of prompt engineering, here's a little bonus trick. You can do something that's called reverse prompt engineering. And this is where you use the AI to write prompts for you, so then you can put back into the AI. Use AI against itself, right? And so I want you to pay attention to this graph here. This graph is called the diffusion of innovation. And it just shows how new ideas and products are adopted into society at large. And I want you to pay close attention to this first circle. And this is what we call the early adopters and innovators. These are the people who always are on the front lines of innovation. Right? When AI first came out, these were the people that were going all in and using it. And once these people test it out, no one dies, everything checks out, that's when the majority of society starts to adopt AI. And this is where we kind of are now. AI has become more of a household name. A lot of people may not be using it, but they're familiar with it. They have at least heard of AI. But my biggest fear for everyone is if you wait to get to this last stage here. This last stage here, this is what we call the laggards. The laggards are the people who are adverse to change. These are the people, for whatever reason, just stick with what worked because it worked in the past. And it reminds me of this quote from the former Nokia CEO. He said in one of his final speeches, "We didn't do anything wrong, and yet somehow we still lost." Just because something worked in the past doesn't mean it's going to work as we enter into this new AI economy. And so if you take away anything from my talk today, I want you guys to remember this one thing, is that AI won't replace you. Someone using AI will. Thank you.